In the land of Tamriel, there is no end to the number of warriors that inhabit the world, from a lowly bandit to the greatest Ansei sword singer. Because there are so many warriors, one may start to ponder who is the greatest warrior in Tamriel. And today, my fellow hirelings, I will discuss who I believe are the best warriors. And at the end of this list, I will tell you who I believe is the greatest warrior ever in the Elder Scrolls series. Before I begin, let me state that I will not be counting indisputable gods and Elder Scrolls protagonists. Mentioning a being like Trinimac on this list would simply be unfair to every mortal warrior, and the protagonists are designed to be blank slates, meaning they can be thieves and mages and not just warriors. Also, this is not a ranked video like some of my others, so besides the last individual I will mention, none of the other warriors are in any particular order of strength. And lastly, this is solely based on my opinion, and I am by no means an expert, so if you have an idea for who you think is the greatest warrior, let me know in the comments down below. With that being said, grab your swords, grab your axes, and let's get right into the video. Gaiden Shinji. Gaiden Shinji was a Redguard blade master in the First Era who is best known for founding the arena in the Imperial City. He was also the leader of the Order of Diagna, which was an order of Ansei sword singers from Hammerfell who had the ability to manifest a sword from their very soul. Each member of the Order of Diagna had to undergo intense and rigorous training, and being the leader of such a group is already noteworthy enough for being an exceptional warrior. Gaiden Shinji fell during the first siege of Orsinium, but only because he was deceived by a Breton king named King Joli into fighting an orc war hero named Baloth Bloodtusk, only to be ambushed by King Joli's archers, who showered both warriors down in a volley of arrows. It is said, however, that before the arrows pierced both warriors, Gaiden Shinji actually won the fight right before dying, demonstrating he was a powerful and capable warrior seconds before his death. Admittedly, nothing is really known about Gaiden Shinji and his exploits aside from what I have already mentioned. However, he is spoken about with reverence on par with that of gods, and he founded the greatest arena in Tamriel, which is why I mentioned him as a great warrior, but maybe not the greatest. Hopefully he can be mentioned more in the next Elder Scrolls game. Ysgramor. Ysgramor, a legend you have probably heard of. There are many speculations about him, and not all information about Ysgramor is accurate. But, more or less, Ysgramor was an Atmorn king that came to Tamriel and was likely the first human ruler of Skyrim. Ysgramor's noteworthy achievements did not come until after an event called the Night of Tears, where the Falmer or Snow Elves of Skyrim genocided all of the humans living in a settlement called Sarthal. Only Ysgramor and his two sons Ingol and Ilgar were able to escape, likely fighting their way out. When Ysgramor returned to Skyrim, he did so with his legendary 500 companions, and proceeded to genocide all of the Snow Elves, driving most underground with the Dwemer. It should be noted that the Snow Elves did not go down without a fight, and there was a major war that ensued on both Skyrim and Solstheim, which the Nords and Ysgramor won. Not only was Ysgramor victorious against the Snow Elves, but he also went to war with the Giants of Skyrim as well. The Giants were led by a terrible half-giant named Sinmer, and when Ysgramor faced this giant, he shattered Sinmer's club and slew him with his legendary battle axe called Wuthrad. Also, according to Skalds, during the war with the Giants, Ysgramor slew so many frost giants that he was often drenched in their blue blood, which is why many Nords adorned blue war paint on their faces and bodies. Something to note is that the frost giants are only ever seen in the Forgotten Vale and Solstheim, and nowhere else in Skyrim. which can confirm that Ysgramor endangered the species of frost giants. Additionally, frost giants are extremely tough opponents as seen with Karstag, and are far superior versions than regular giants, so slaughtering many is a major achievement as a warrior. Also, this is just speculation, as there is no information on this, but Ysgramor has a personal shield called Ysgramor's Shield, alongside with his battle axe Wulfharth. This goes against how he is portrayed in Sovngarde, but I believe Ysgramor was such a large and strong warrior that he used Wulfharth, a two-handed weapon, with just one hand and had his shield in the other. I would say that Ysgramor is the greatest warrior. However, there are still a few more fabled warriors that have more recorded victories that can contest with Ysgramor himself. Frandar Hunding. A warrior you likely never heard of, but Frandar was another Redguard sword singer and master Ansei. He is most known for being one of the first Yokudans to settle in Hammerfell and developed the Way of the Sword, which was a martial arts philosophy on blade mastery. When Frandar was merely 14 years old, he was already proficient with a blade, and after his father died, he often worked as a caravan guard and his services were in great demand. When Frandar was 17, he was already a sword singer and master Ansei, and was constantly pursuing enlightenment through the path of the sword, and because of this, he often fought in duels. Frandar Hunding was challenged so many times that when he was 30 years old, he had won more than 90 duels and had killed all of his opponents. Frandar was so good at the blade that he stopped using physical swords and started using the Shihai, which was a sword formed out of one's own spirit. Frandar also led a rebellion of sword singers against the Yokudan Emperor here. Less than 20,000 sword singers survived the rebellion, but they were able to kill over 300,000 soldiers in Emperor Hira's army. Leading a rebellion and slaughtering such a number of soldiers while being outnumbered 30-1 is an incredible, notable accomplishment as a warrior. When Frandar landed in the land that would become Hammerfell, he discovered that there were hordes of goblins living on the land, and this offended Frandar so much that he went to war with the goblins in order to drive them all out. Frandar unfortunately died during one of the bloodiest battles fighting the goblins. However, his son, David, was able to defeat the remaining goblins. Not only was Frandar an extremely powerful warrior that could rival that of Ysgramor, but he was also a capable general able to win wars against all odds. Ysmir Wulfharth. Ysmir Wulfharth is a very interesting character because much of his life is speculation and the books about him could be false. However, if we take the books literally, then Wulfharth was an extremely powerful supernatural warrior that defied death numerous times and was also a dragonborn. Wulfharth is attributed with driving the Dureni Altmer out of Skyrim, fighting off the Eastern Orcs, and defeating their chief with a shout, and he also swallowed a thundercloud, which is pretty fucking cool. Wulfharth had also fought the Orcish god Orki multiple times, who was the Nordic interpretation of Malakath. He was also killed in his last fight with Orki, but only because he used a shout that advanced his age too far, and so he died. He was then brought back to life by Dagoth at the Battle of Red Mountain 130 years later, where he killed Dumak Dwarf King and was then killed by Nerevar Indoril, and was sent back to Skyrim in ashes by Kinnereth and died yet again. And then, he was summoned by the Greybeards in the Second Era of 572 to repel the Second Akaviri invasion by either Yoren the Scald King or Amalexia, and he was successful. Afterwards, he returned to Sovngarde to sleep for 3 more centuries. And then, near the end of the interregnum, Wulfharth was awakened once more by the Greybeards to fulfill a prophecy to help Hjalti Earlybeard, the man who would become Tiber Septim and Talos, so he could conquer and unite the entirety of Tamriel. Wulfharth at this point was more known as the Underking, and assisted Talos in conquering Cyrodiil and all the other lands until all that was left was the Elven lands. Wulfharth was then betrayed by Talos and his battle mage Zurin Arctis, and captured his soul, putting it into the heart of a colossal dwarven construct called the Numidium. Wulfharth at this point in time was more or less dead, the permanent kind of dead, but his soul was able to conquer all of Somerset Isles in the Numidium, which is quite the legacy to carry on. Wulfharth is a very complicated character, and I didn't explain everything Wulfharth did, but even the stuff I did mention is beyond legendary. A warrior who is able to face off armies and Daedric princes is nothing to shy at. However, his great successes are also matched with great failures, and while defying death is cool as fuck, he still died to other warriors and adversaries. And now, for the character that I believe to be the definitive strongest warrior in the Elder Scrolls. Maybe this is a basic bitch answer, and a bit expected, but it is none other than Pellinal Whitestrake in the Shezareen flesh. Pellinal Whitestrake is most famous for his legendary and beyond brutal exploits aiding the Elysian slave rebellion against the Aliens. However, before this, he had also wandered place to place, either conquering or building up kingdoms by himself, and then abandoning them later just to do it all over again someplace else. Because of this, it is often said that Pellinal Whitestrake inadvertently conquered all of Tamriel. Before Elysia started her rebellion, Pellinal was already fighting and slaughtering the Aliens by himself, and when he heard of the revolt, he joined Elysia's cause of freedom and became her champion. Pellinal was an interesting warrior compared to the rest on this list, because he wasn't a traditional leader, and typically fought on his own, usually challenging higher Ayleids to duels. Some of the Ayleid kings that Pellinal killed were Haromir of Copper and Tea, Gordaur the Shaper, Fire King Hadhul, Selethel the Singer, and Umaril the Unfeathered. Pellinal Whitestrake would also go on rampages due to his madness, like when his lover Huna was killed. When he went mad, he would kill without purpose and indiscriminately, and would destroy untold amounts of cities and towns. One of his madnesses included killing thousands of Khajiit, only because Pellinal thought that they were a species of elf. The only way Pellinal could be calmed down was when Elysia herself prayed to the divines, and even then he still wasn't all there, likely because he was touched by the gods in such a unique way, like possibly being the Shezareen. But someone was smothered by moths for suggesting such a thing, so I will say no more. Now, you could argue that Pellinal was not a man and more like a demigod, and so he shouldn't be on this list, and you may be right. But there is no definitive way to know for sure, and so I will include him here. Pellinal was, and is, the greatest warrior because of his ferocity and his extremely high kill count, being attributed with ruling all of Tamriel at one point or another, and leading armies to destroy the entirety of the Ayleids. So, the winner is obviously Pellinal, and that means that is all I wrote. A video where I figure out who is the greatest warrior in the Elder Scrolls series. Now, this was completely based on my opinion, so if you have an idea for who you think is the greatest warrior, maybe comment down below, create discussion and whatnot. And I will see you whenever the fuck I decide to upload again. House Telvanni be with you.
Please, O hero of Skyrim, I shall be ever so grateful.